I'm Win Thurlow, the Executive Director of MedTech, the Association for New York's biomed industry. Welcome to the second installment of our Empire State Focus 2022 series, a virtual tour of 5 innovation regions across upstate New York. Today, we turn our focus to the Buffalo-Niagara region. We're pleased to partner with Invest Buffalo-Niagara, the region's leading economic development engine. Over the last 22 years, Invest Buffalo-Niagara has generated over 44,000 new jobs and over $5.5 billion in capital investment. In the next 3 years, Invest Buffalo-Niagara will work with over 300 companies and expect that those opportunities will generate 3,000 new jobs and over $1 billion in capital investment. That's billion with a B. We also want to thank the New York State Division of Science, Technology, and Innovation, many of you know them as NYSTAR, for their underwriting support. At MedTech, we have a mission to grow New York's biomed industry. Our members are the companies and academic institutions devoted to healthcare. They develop the medical devices, drugs, and treatments relied upon by patients around the globe. If you're interested in joining or learning more about us, you can find us at medtech.org. Today's program will consist of 3 parts. In this first hour, we'll give you a kind of 10,000-foot view of the region. In the second hour, we'll take a deeper dive into some of the unique life science assets and resources in the region. And in the third hour, you'll have an opportunity to meet with some of the most exciting and compelling innovators in the life sciences and healthcare space. I am thrilled to be joined today by my good friend Kim Grant, the Vice President of Business Development for Invest Buffalo-Niagara. Kim's going to take us through hour 1. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Kim. You'll hear from her. I'll come back. We'll chat a little bit about your questions and go from there. Kim Grant, nice to have you here. Let me turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Win. We're so thrilled to be partnering with MedTech on this effort. It's a really exciting time to be a part of Buffalo-Niagara and specifically in life sciences. And as Win alluded to, in this first hour, we'll take a broad spectrum look at what's going on here and then take a deeper dive with some of our leaders and then some of our companies that we're featuring. Invest Buffalo-Niagara is absolutely thrilled to be a part of the Empire State Focus and specifically about what we're doing here in the region. Next slide. For any of you that aren't familiar with our economic development agency, we cover the 8 western counties of Western New York. So everything from the west side of Rochester all the way to the Pennsylvania line, and then everything from Canada to the PA line. So it's a lot of territory and a lot of amazing innovations and companies and colleges and universities. It's a really dynamic area and we cover a lot of ground. The reason companies and people choose to live here, quite frankly, is it's the work-life, live and play balance. It's affordable, especially because we just came out of the pandemic. People knew that if they lived in downstate in New York City, they were paying $3,000 for a 600 square foot apartment. And upstate has low-cost hydropower and real estate and extraordinary workforce with incredible work ethic and just a really high quality of life. We've got the lake right there. The breeze comes over. It's just fabulous. I was away for 10 years in Columbus, Ohio, and I can only tell you that I spent all my vacations coming home to Buffalo and Western New York and Chautauqua. As you can see in the picture behind me, that's my favorite place on earth. There's something really special about this region. If you want to do your own fact finding, you can actually go to buffaloniagara.org and look at our economic guide and our relocation guide. We saw a lot of people move home during the pandemic because they realized that a 20-minute commute is a heck of a lot better than an hour-and-a-half commute. And the quality of their life improved. They can put their children to bed every night. So from a business perspective, because we are an attraction organization, when mentioned, are close to 48,000 jobs since our inception in 2020, and the $5.6 billion in investment and capital that has been put into our region since 2020. We have businesses flocking here because they recognize that there are incentives, there are tax programs, there are grants. We have extensive trade agreements and export assistance and expertise in logistics, workforce development, and I'll name some of our partners a little bit later. And the newest piece to the Buffalo Niagara puzzle is access to venture funding and equity. For a while, you would think that all of that was happening in Boston and San Francisco. But quite frankly, lately, because of efforts like 43 North and our first unicorn, ACV, investors are taking a second look at what's going on in the Western New York region. So the best thing I can do, seeing is believing, or telling the story, is to talk about Dr. Irfan Khan. I spent a little over 7 years at the University of Buffalo, and I met this electrocardiologist in 2015, and he was moving his company, Empirican at the time, to Colorado because he recognized, as a doctor that wanted to do clinical trials, that there was a disconnect between patients and physicians that wanted to do clinical trials and the companies that needed them done. And he met with me and met with my team at the Center of Excellence and decided to stay here. And not only did he stay here, he ultimately ended up winning $500,000 with 43 North. He became a Buffalo Institute of Genomics company and has space in the Seneca One Tower where all of the incredible things are happening with the M&T Innovation Center and the tech community. It's just been extraordinary. So he has literally built his company from 0 to over 50 employees now, just 7 years later, because of the things that I mentioned before: a city of good neighbors, a city of great mentors, and the quality of life. Let's do another example. I've had the pleasure of working with Wayne Bacon for the last decade. Garwood Medical is another extraordinary company, born and bred right here in Buffalo, New York. They're working on a product called Bioprax. So there is $1 billion industry out there regarding biofilms that end up on implantable orthopedics. So think about hip replacements, knee replacements. There's a biofilm, and it's got, if it's implanted and there is a film on there, it can cause disease in the actual implantation. And so Garwood, working with Tony Campaneri and Mark Ahrensberger, and Brian Peterson and Mary Canty, they have figured out a way to eradicate that biofilm with the Bioprax. And they are working with some of the smartest scientists and engineers in our region. And literally, people who have had these infections are going to be safe going forward. So I highly recommend you checking out Garwood. They're working with the Department of Defense, NIH, NSF, and again, the University of Buffalo, and just an extraordinary company born and bred here. And I'll give you one more for the road. I am so proud to call Vijay Kumar my friend. He is one of the original entrepreneurs in the Buffalo entrepreneurial ecosystem for life sciences. And first he started with IMCO Diagnostics, which ultimately became Trinity Biotech. And then he made friends with a company called Askew Diagnostics. They were looking for a place to expand their R&D facilities, and they ended up at the Center of Excellence for Bioinformatics and Life Sciences. And he grew that team with the help of Startup New York, our tax-free program through NYSTAR and ESD. I think they've got over 25 people now, and Askew has done an extraordinary job of eliminating the human error out of assay testing. And we are just so grateful to have them here. Really, really smart people. Again, that work, live, and play balance that everyone is searching for. And certainly as of the coming out of the pandemic, we were home for a couple of years. It's nice to be back in the offices and be surrounded by all these really brilliant people who are helping solve some of these horrible health outcomes so that we're improving our lives going forward. So I know that through MedTech, we're talking specifically about life sciences today, but Invest Buffalo Niagara isn't just exclusively focused on life sciences. When then Governor Cuomo rolled out the Western New York Regional Economic Council in 2012, there were really 5 areas of focus that were realized to be the talents and natural assets of our region. So we have tons of companies here working with advanced business services. Think about the call centers for banks, insurance companies, advanced manufacturing. We have a long history with General Motors and Ford and Saint-Gobain and 3M and Unifrax and IMA Life, and I could go on and on. Our agribusiness, yes, we have cows, and cows make milk and yogurt and cheese. The Gabanis of the world, Lactalis, and the dog biscuits with Nestle's. And, if you haven't hit the Eden Corn Festival, you're missing something. Welch's and their grape juice, all those grapes down in the southern tier. For miles and miles, as far as the eye can see. So agribusiness is huge and growing. Life sciences, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that, and logistics. If you think about where we're located, warehousing is huge, not just for Amazon, but for everyone that is bringing that across the border from Canada, and our proximity to all of the masses of people in Southern Ontario and in the upper Northeast. Sometimes you have to go backwards in order to tell where you've been. I'm always a big proponent of seeing is believing, and whatever you've done in the past is a good indicator of what's going to happen in the future. So I'm going to take you back on a little history journey. Back in 2006, the beginning of the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus started with Hauptmann Woodward and the University of Buffalo Center of Excellence and the Roswell Park Cancer Institute. It all started there with those first 3 buildings where we said, we're on to something. What happens next? And then from there, fast forward to the next slide, we had some growth. It took a couple of years, but the cluster grew. And then we had the Gates Vascular Institute and the UB Center for Translational Research, the Michigan Goodrich Garage, and everyone wanting to drive their cars on those days when it wasn't like today where it's 75 and sunny and you can take your bike. The UB Educational Opportunities Center and the High Point Long-Term Care Center. Again, growing the cluster. And then fast forward another 5 years, we added to that with the Conventus Medical Building, the John R. Oshai Children's Hospital, Roswell Parks Clinical Sciences Center, and the UB Jacobs School of Medicine. So here we are today in 2022, and the campus is acres. And they did such a beautiful job in creating this university district that flows right into the neighborhood. We've got Allentown, we've got the Fruit Belt, we've got North Buffalo, and then we've got the gateway to downtown to the rest of the innovation community, all the way down on the subway line down to Seneca One Tower. It's been an extraordinary journey, but if you think about the way Silicon Valley started or Cambridge started, it's all about that clustering and race for place. And that's what we're finding ourselves doing right now, is to create those clusters. If you're in Cambridge and you're in biotech, you're going to have about an hour and a half commute. It's going to be very expensive to park if you want to drive your cars. I work with companies that are in Boston, and they're telling me that it's less expensive to fly to Buffalo in the morning, take an Uber for $15 from the Buffalo Niagara Airport to the downtown campus, do their work, get on Uber back to the airport. It takes about 20 minutes, and they can still put their kids to bed at night back in Boston. So I think we're onto something here. It's affordable. If you think about animal work, cadaveric work, UB has one of the largest human gift programs in the world. The reason they built the UB Jacobs School of Medicine was to increase the number of physicians that they're producing on an annual basis from 144 to 180. So really cultivating that medical mind to help take care of through telemedicine and through rural doctors that are so desperately needed. So we're really seeing all of that happen right there on the Buffalo Niagara Medical campus. And we give tours on a regular basis. So if you think you have a project or a clinical trial, phase 1, phase 2, feel free to give us a call. We're glad to connect you with all of our resources. Next slide, please. So just a couple of more minutes on the companies and the resources here. Through this clustering, we have seen extraordinary growth. And you're going to hear from some of those folks in the second hour. The leaders like Norma Nowak, who I had the pleasure of working with at the Center of Excellence, and Ron Newbold, who when I knew him was at Pfizer and now is helping Martin Graham at the Empire Discovery Institute. Dr. Ed Snell at Houtman Woodward and their extraordinary cryo-EM microscope that's very, very rare. I think there's very few of them in the whole world. And Dr. Steven Schweitzberg, who I am proud to call my friend, who had the extraordinary vision to take the top floor of the Jacobs School of Medicine and turn it into UB Rise. Research, innovation, simulation, surgical technologies, entrepreneurship, and engineering. In that place, our doctors of tomorrow are learning how to work on robotic surgery and doing simulations on all sorts of equipment that allows them to learn the technical using their hands and training their muscles to do surgery properly. Just an extraordinary place. The CTRC with Tim Murphy and Sanjay Sethe and Pam Anderson and Kim Brunton, brilliant people. The Gates Vascular Institute with our very own Jacobs Institute in there. If you haven't had a chance to hear Dr. Nick Hopkins talk about the Jacobs Institute and I2R, Idea to Reality, they are working with leaders like Moog to bring scientific experiments into commercialization. Really, really special. And then later in the hours, you'll hear from Kevin Lawson at KSL and Adam Utley from Immunion and Michelle Bond from Compliance Team and Raf Major from AHRM, and hear about healthcare economics. Personalized medicine, regulatory, biobanking. I know that this list that I assembled is not complete. And for those that I did not include, I apologize. But I can tell you that for those children who were born prematurely and got surfactant, they know who Oni Biotech is, because it's because of them that drug came to market, and they're headquartered right here in Western New York. We do have 21 colleges and universities in our area, but I would be remiss if I did not put a highlight on the University of Buffalo. They are the crown jewel of the State University of New York system. Of the 64 campuses across the state, they are the largest comprehensive university in the SUNY system. And what you're looking at here is a beautiful picture of the North Campus, where the School of Engineering is, where the School of College and Arts and Sciences is. And then we have our beautiful South Campus with the dental school, the pharmacy school, the School of Architecture, the School of Nursing, the School of Social Work. Just an extraordinary place. And then last but not least, the Jacobs School of Medicine. Just an extraordinary place. If you ever have an opportunity to go in there, I recommend you do so. We have international Fortune 500 companies working in this building, training tomorrow's clinicians. Medtronics, Johnson & Johnson, Cook Medical, Boston Scientific, just oodles. So we talked about clustering. We talked about all of our resources. Let's talk a little bit about our incubators and accelerators in the region. 43 North, for those of you that haven't heard, is the largest business plan competition in the world, and applications are open. They are going to award $5 million in October. So if you have something that's the next great thing, I highly recommend you check out our friends at 43 North and apply. The Innovation Center and the DIG, you can't go wrong. You're going to have those serendipity moments there, collisions, if you were, with people that can help you advance and hit milestones quicker. And it's not just in Buffalo, it's in Fredonia. It's up in Lockport. Our friends at Launch New York, where would we be without Marnie Levine and innovation in Western New York? When she and I had a brief opportunity to work together at the University of Buffalo, I learned more in the year that we were together than I did in the first 25 years of my career. So I can't rave enough about her and her innovation, and her truly her heart is in biotech in the Western New York community. And that stayed true as she went to Launch New York. Trek up in Niagara Falls, the $13 million new innovation that's done to the incubator at the Center of Excellence in Bioinformatics and Life Sciences, and Z80 Labs, the Western New York Incubator Network, formerly run by my friend Tom Murdoch. One thing that I'll tell you about Western New York is you are just 1 degree away from someone that can help you. And all you have to do is ask. When you're talking about making improvements on your home, somebody would say, oh, I got a guy. Well, if you're trying to do something in the life sciences biotech space in Western New York, I can reach out to anybody and they will pay it forward. And we got a guy, we got a girl, we've got a scientist, we've got a PhD, we've got an MD. I cannot express the collaboration. It's in the ecosystem, it's in the sphere here. And so I welcome all of you to reach out. If you have something, ask a question, we're here to help. I mentioned before proximity to Canada. I had the pleasure of going to the Collision Conference in Toronto on Tuesday this week. And I have to tell you, it was extraordinary because A, it only took me 15 minutes to cross the border. B, Toronto's an hour and a half away. But when I was at Collision, I got to reconnect with my friends at the University of Toronto, McMaster University, the York District, Waterloo, J Labs. There are extraordinary things happening an hour and a half north here. And all of those folks are interested in having a foothold in what's going on in the US. And so that proximity serves us well. And I can tell you, it also works for my friends down the thruway in Rochester with all of their optics activity, and in Syracuse. This truly is a golden horseshoe. If you draw your finger around the Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, that is the golden horseshoe, and they call it that for a reason. There's some brilliant minds working together and collaborations happening. And to those Canadians that have joined us today, if you think you're doing well there, I insist you give us a call and see what we can do to help you scale your business in the US. We mentioned our website, buffaloniagara.org. Let me go a little bit deeper. We have, in our conversations with company, identified that the most important thing for any company is people, its workforce. And recognizing that, we started a campaign in 2019 called Be in Buffalo. And we thought, oh, it's going to be people moving back to the region. It's going to be people wanting to be with their elderly parents or moving home to be with their siblings. And then something surprising happened. There was this thing called a pandemic, and people realized that they could have a better quality of life living in Western New York. So there is a huge initiative. We're doing intern events. People are moving to Western New York that have never lived here before. In the 2020 census, our population actually went up. We're going to be doing events in Buffalo Bills cities with the Bills Mafia. We're going to do more intern events. We're going to do more job fairs. Check out the website, join our website, get the postings, get the LinkedIn, get the Facebook, get the Instagram. It's a really special time to be in Western New York, and I encourage you all to be in Buffalo and help us keep it a secret. That's what it says on one of the walls when you're driving around down Buffalo, Main Street in Buffalo. It says, "Keep Buffalo secret," from Oxford Bennett, one of the companies we helped locate here. So it goes without saying that we are a place where it's very, very affordable. Part of that is Niagara Falls. A lot of companies are manufacturing things, and it costs money. It costs electricity. And we have this extraordinary partnership with our utility companies and the New York Power Authority to fuel all of that. I will tell you that Western New York wants to tell our story. And the way we're doing that is with things like our podcast, Bell Ringer. And that crosses all of the industries we serve. But I can tell you, it's really, really helped get the story out there. We've had articles all across the world, extraordinary people wanting to tell our story. If you need to reach me, kgrant@buffaloniagara.org. I have Calendly, and I am glad to talk to anyone about anything and hook you up with all of the great resources.
Thank you, Kim, for that terrific overview of what's going on in the Buffalo Niagara region. Kim, one of the questions that has come in is from someone who's interested in looking for some available manufacturing space and wondering whether Invest Buffalo Niagara can assist in finding sites or helping to locate available manufacturing facilities in the region.
What a fabulous question, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't address it. So the services that Invest offers are free. We are funded by investors who realize it's important to bring in a robust diverse amount of companies that do different things. And the project support that we provide to companies is first in site selection, site availability. So when a company comes to me, we ask questions like, what square footage do you need? What region do you need to be at? Do you need access to rail, water, highways? What ceiling heights are you going to need? Are you going to have a crane? What type of access are you going to need to electricity, gas, water? Do you have any sewer requirements? And we work with our utility partners and our municipality partners on identifying the right site for those customers, for those clients. We work with over 320 brokers and developers. So right now there's very low inventory, but we are working on fixing that. We expect through the Build Back Better program that in October, we are going to solve some of our capacity issues. So this is a moment in time, and you'll be able to draw a line in the sand and say, on this day, we started to fix the problem, and we will have more facilities and more places for people that want to come and manufacture in Western New York.
So while we're talking about needs, one of the other viewers writes in and says, what I really need is access to capital, to investment.
So I will tell you that Western New York is doing better with capital. We have pre-seed entities like Launch New York. I would encourage anyone that is interested in funding to talk to Rick Gardner and the Business and Entrepreneur Partnership Group at University of Buffalo. We work very closely with Western New York Impact Fund and Tom Quinn and his team. We work with Varia Ventures from the Lippis Group and Excel Partners out of Rochester. But I will tell you, this is not for the faint of heart. It is, if you're choosing to be an entrepreneur, this is a marathon and not a sprint. And you're going to need to have your ducks in a row. You are going to have people due diligence on your idea. And it's not just going to be an idea on the back of a napkin. It's going to have to be fully formed business plan, talking to the small business centers, having a trajectory, understanding what your milestones are, understanding what your burn rate is. I will tell you that if you don't have all those things, there are programs available to help you put all those pieces of the puzzle together. You are not in it alone. There are lots of resources, including 43 North that I mentioned earlier, but something as simple as an I-Corps program, because the NIH recognized that things aren't just going to automatically come out of universities and become science projects to commercialized services or products. So they put the I-Corps program into place to try and figure out voice of customer. What is the actual need for that thing being cultivated? And they put some money behind it. So there is a place for it. And we worked very closely when I was at UB with Stony Brook and the Life Sciences Summit. We worked with Armory Capital. I was thinking of all the different things down the thruway of all the people we talked to. The Western New York Innovation Fund with Clayton Besh. There are resources, but you can't expect people to come knocking on your door ready to write you a check. You're going to have to go find them, and you're going to have to prove yourself worthy of the funding. The other one that I particularly liked working with was the BAC in Albany. The Biomedical Accelerator and Commercialization Center is a really special place.
So Kim, thank you for kind of mentioning some of those other resources, because, one of the things And certainly for viewers who have been watching the larger series, you'll hear and meet some of the people and innovators at these other resources. And you talked about Buffalo, of course, being the city of good neighbors, and you also talked about its proximity to other places in the state and the collaborative nature of what's going on. And I think that's an important point to make. From the other side of the border, we have a question from a Canadian audience member who says that their business is looking to enter the US market and is looking for help in the regulatory sphere. Before I let you answer that, I know we've got a great conversation coming up with Michelle Bond at Compliance Team, but could you talk a little bit about resources on this side of the border for Canadians who are interested in entering the US market?
Absolutely. So as Wynn mentioned, in the third hour, you're going to hear from Michelle Bond, who I am proud to call my friend, with Compliance Team. And she has for over a decade now helped shepherd companies through the 510(k) process with medical devices, and has recently expanded into verification and validation and quality control for pharmaceuticals. But recognizing that there was a shortfall of regulatory people, UB has actually embarked upon increasing that as a curriculum and working with companies to help navigate that. So there are resources available. Not only that, there's expertise here. It's more than just having a path to regulatory approval. You want to make sure that in parallel you're doing your right reimbursement codes and following predicate devices, and seeing that so that you're not wasting your most precious time and money on duplication of efforts. So that there are things here, and just give us a call. We'll connect you to those resources.
Well, Kim, I've gotten the word that we think we've solved some of our technical difficulties. We'll be able to play the video. I think what I'm going to suggest before we do that, we're coming up close to the end of our hour, so I want to take an opportunity to remind our audience of a couple of things. One, we have some poll questions that will remain open in your agenda. We'd love to learn more about you and our audience members. Two, whether you contact Kim and her team at Invest Buffalo Niagara directly or not, we encourage you to let us know if you've got particular questions or connections that you're interested in based on today's episode. Give us a shout. Certainly connect with Kim at kgrant@buffaloniagara.org, or us here at the MedTech team. I'm at wthurlow@medtech.org. We believe strongly in the power of collaboration and connection. One of the reasons that we're so thrilled to partner with Invest Buffalo Niagara. Both of our organizations are invested in the success of industry in New York, in the regions. And so to the extent that we can help you, we want to encourage you to reach out to us. As well, one last final point before we turn to the video, I want to remind you about the rest of the agenda for today. Starting at 11 o'clock, I'll be having a conversation with some of the really leaders in the specific and unique life sciences assets located in the Buffalo Niagara region. And then in our third hour, I really encourage you, we've got some terrific innovators, some conversations that Kim and I have had with those innovators, talking about both their entrepreneurial journey, the problems that they've identified, the solutions they've gotten. I hope it'll give you a sense of what it's like to work in this region.
I encourage everyone, if you haven't checked out Western New York, and I welcome you all to be a part of our biotech, medtech community. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Kim.